Usually when we talk about seeking answers,
Yeah.
especially in something like a medical diagnosis, there's this underlying expectation of precision.
Right. It feels very much like engineering.
Exactly. Like you fall, you break your arm, the X-ray shows that jagged white line on the screen, and the doctor just points at it and says, yep, there it is. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's completely binary. It's either broken or it's not broken.
Right. It's clean.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, even though it's bad news, it is deeply comforting. I mean, we like things to be visible. We like them to be neatly categorized and, predictable.
Because predictability gives us that illusion of control. We desperately want the universe to operate like clockwork.
But then you step out of that comforting clinic and into the world of neurodevelopment or consciousness, and this is really what we're getting into today, the very fabric of reality itself.
Oh, yeah. That's where it gets messy.
Totally. Suddenly that X-ray machine is just completely shattered. We aren't looking at neat white lines anymore. We're looking at a landscape that is just profoundly murky.
Yeah.
And that brings us to what we are exploring with you today. Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are looking at this fascinating, genuinely mind-bending essay. It was written on September 1st, 2005 by an author named Shu Feng, and it's titled The Chapter of Preaching Tao, Article 2, The Confusion of Quantum Mechanics.
It is such a phenomenal piece of writing to unpack with you all today, because it tackles the absolute definition of muddy waters in both science and spirituality.
Yeah, it really doesn't hold back.
No, not at all. And the author doesn't just start with physics, right? They start with a very heavy universal human truth. The core premise is that humanity is currently struggling in a state of profound despair.
Wow. Okay.
And the root of that despair, according to the text, is that we simply don't know what happens after death.
Yeah, the text argues that life, whether you are living this noble existence or a totally humble one, often just feels like an exhausting struggle before the inevitable end. There's this massive looming wall of the unknown.
Precisely. And because of that deep existential fear of the unknown, the author argues that we lean heavily into blind faith and self-deception.
Right. We want the X-ray.
Exactly. We are desperately searching for that clear X-ray to make us feel safe. The essay claims that Christians who might not fully understand the deeper realities of the Creator's kingdom, or Buddhists who might not fully comprehend the ultimate state of being a Buddha,
or even scientists, right?
Yes, even scientists who don't grasp the true philosophical essence of science. They are all essentially anesthetizing themselves. They are clinging to dogma just to avoid the fear of the dark.
Yeah.
But then the author introduces this entirely unexpected glimmer of hope: quantum mechanics.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because equating the densest, most mathematically complex branch of physics with a glimmer of hope for human existential dread is, it's a massive leap.
It really is.
The text points out that while quantum mechanics seems to offer a link between human consciousness and physical matter, it simultaneously plunges us into absolute profound confusion.
Oh, total confusion.
There's this incredibly striking anecdote in the text where Erwin Schrödinger, the literal father of the wave function, actually laments to Niels Bohr about his own creation.
I love this quote.
Right. He says, "What I truly regret is that one day I got confused by quantum mechanics."
It's so telling.
So, to you listening right now, if one of the greatest scientific minds in human history was confused by this stuff, please do not feel bad if your brain hurts a little bit during our conversation today.
Honestly, it's actually a necessary confusion. The author's whole strategy here is to break down this global scientific bewilderment into 10 distinct mind-bending points.
Right, they really map it out.
They do. And to understand the grand philosophy at the very end of this text, this ultimate hope for humanity, we first have to dive into the foundational breakdown of physical certainty. We have to look at exactly how that X-ray machine shatters.
Let's shatter it. So the first major theme the author presents deals with the absolute breakdown of certainty. It starts right at the foundational building blocks of reality, like what is matter actually made of?
The classic wave-particle duality.
Exactly. Are subatomic particles waves, or are they particles? And if they're abstract waves, how do they function in our concrete reality?
That distinction right there between concrete and abstract is the crucial mechanism here. I mean, if it's a concrete wave, like a sound wave vibrating through the air or physical ripple moving across a pond, we can understand that.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah, it transfers energy. We can measure it. But quantum mechanics suggests these are probability waves. They are abstract mathematical possibilities of where a particle might be.
Which is just wild to think about. If the floor beneath my feet is made of atoms, And those atoms are made of subatomic particles, and those particles are just abstract probability waves. I mean, it means the ground I'm walking on isn't fully real until I interact with it.
Exactly. And the author takes this physical reality and applies it to our spiritual and philosophical realities. This gets even more intense when the text brings in Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
Oh, right. Heisenberg stated that uncertainty is inherent in the subatomic world. It's not just that our microscopes aren't powerful enough.
Right, it's not a technological failing.
Exactly. It's a fundamental law that you cannot know both the exact position and the exact momentum of a particle at the same time.
Mm.
The more precisely you measure one, the fuzzier the other gets.
Yeah.
And the author takes this hard science and asks a deeply theological question. Does the greatest creator manage the universe by rolling dice?
Which is a terrifying concept to someone seeking absolute truth. Let's walk through the author's logic here for a second.
Okay.
If the material world is made of atoms, and atoms are made of these subatomic particles, and those particles are inherently uncertain or fuzzy, then our entire macro world, everything we see, touch, and believe in, is built on a foundation of uncertainty.
The essay points out how this creates a massive crisis for religious absolutes. It specifically references Jesus claiming, "I am the way and the door to truth." The author asks, if everything is fundamentally uncertain at the base level of reality, where is the door? Can a door even exist?
What's fascinating here is the bridge the author builds. If the universe's building blocks are rolling dice, how can there be a rigid, predetermined divine plan?
Right, the logic just falls apart.
Exactly. If the microscopic is fluid, the macroscopic institutions built on top of it, like rigid religious dogma, they completely lose their solid footing.
I do have to push back a little on the implications of this, though. The author asks, if the subatomic world is just random rolling dice, does humanity even have a bright future?
It's a bleak thought.
Yeah, like, what is the value of any spiritual practice or moral compass, if I can offer an analogy?
Oh, for it.
It's like trying to follow a really strict, meticulous recipe to bake a cake. You do everything right. You measure the flour to the gram, you crack the eggs perfectly, you set the oven to the exact temperature.
You're doing everything you're supposed to do.
Right. You are following the strict laws of classical cause and effect. But because the flour and the eggs are operating on quantum uncertainty, you open the oven and you pull out a bicycle.
Yes. Exactly like baking a bicycle. And if the universe operates like that, the laws of classical causality are completely dead.
Right. And if the universe randomly spits out bicycles, doesn't that render our human pursuit of a bright future completely meaningless? I mean, if my actions don't directly cause a logical reaction, why do anything?
This is exactly why the text brings up the concept of karma and predictable outcomes. Because in the macro world, things seem to make sense.
Sure they do.
Heavenly bodies have predictable orbits. We can calculate solar eclipses centuries in advance. If you sow seeds in good soil, you get a harvest. The text quotes the traditional concept, good begets good, evil begets evil.
But in the subatomic world, described by quantum mechanics, the text notes that specific events lack this causality entirely. You literally have effects without causes and causes without effects.
Particles can just pop in and out of existence.
Right. And the author concludes that this makes life feel like a gamble. If good doesn't necessarily beget good at a foundational level, it feeds right back into the existential despair we started with.
Both strict scientific materialism and rigid religious dogma fail because they both rely on a predictable oven. They both assume that if you put in the ingredients, you get the cake.
So if the universe isn't a predictable machine operating on classical cause and effect, if the oven is just doing whatever it wants, then what is actually driving reality?
That is the million-dollar question.
The text argues that the answer isn't some external objective rule book. The answer might actually be us. Which brings us to the second major theme of the essay, the staggering power of the observer.
Right. If the objective rules are broken, we have to look at the subjective. The text tackles the idea that observation creates reality. In quantum mechanics, this is known as wave function collapse.
Okay, break that down for us.
It's the idea that a particle exists as a fuzzy cloud of probabilities until it is observed or measured, at which point it snaps into a definite state.
The behavior and properties of subatomic particles are directly related to the observer's position. But I want to talk about how the text explains this, because it uses this bizarre, incredibly striking image.
Oh, the cat and the owl?
Yes. It says that without human observation, a particle might be like a running cat. But when it is observed by humans, it becomes a flying owl.
It is a very dramatic metaphor.
I mean, is it too dramatic? A running cat turning into a flying owl just because you looked at it? That feels like a massive exaggeration of wave function collapse. Like, I know quantum mechanics is weird, but we aren't literally changing species by looking at them.
Well, biologically, of course, it's absurd, but metaphorically, I think the author is using that extreme image to illustrate a valid point about fundamental nature.
Okay, how so?
The essay isn't saying the physical shapeshifts in the macro world. It's saying that the foundational nature of the thing, whether it's acting as a wave or a particle, whether it's a cat or an owl, is entirely dependent on the act of observation.
So the act of looking is what finalizes it.
Exactly. The observer doesn't just passively watch reality. The observer forces reality to make a choice.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because thinking about it that way reminds me exactly of how a video game engine works.
Oh, how do you mean?
Like, if you are playing a massive open-world video game, the computer processor does not render every single tree, rock, blade of grass, and building in the entire digital world all at once.
Right, the console would melt.
Exactly. If it tried to do that, the system would immediately crash.
Yeah.
It only renders the specific forest that your character actively turns to look at. Everything behind you isn't fully rendered. It just exists as code, as probability, until you move your camera.
That is a perfect analogy.
Is the text suggesting the universe is acting like a game engine to save processing power?
Exactly like a game engine. And if the universe is saving processing power by only rendering what we look at, it begs the profound question: where is the code stored and who wrote it?
Wow.
The text actively connects this quantum physics concept to purely idealistic viewpoints from ancient philosophy and religion. It brings up René Descartes, who famously said, "I think, therefore I am."
And Buddhism, right?
Yes. It points to Buddhism, which teaches all phenomena are created by the mind. The author is asking you, the reader, a deeply unsettling question. Do things only exist because I observe them?
It's dizzying. If I don't look, do they cease to exist? Objective reality just evaporates.
It really does. And the text poses a series of profound questions here. If the objective is not real, and the real is not objective, what is reality? Is subjectivity reality itself?
That's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. I think this challenges you, the listener, to consider how this shifts the burden of reality entirely onto your own consciousness. You are no longer a passive passenger sitting in the backseat of the universe. You are the one rendering the trees.
Okay, but once we accept that the observer might be actively rendering reality, the text takes us down an even deeper rabbit hole.
Oh, it gets so much deeper.
Because if our consciousness is the engine, then the fundamental rules of space, time, and identity completely collapse. Because those rules only apply to the rendered trees, not the engine itself.
Precisely. Let's look at how the author applies the concept of superposition to human beings.
Right, superposition is the quantum principle that particles can exist in multiple states or locations simultaneously until they are observed.
Right.
So since human beings are entirely made of particles, the author asks, can humans exist in different places or different space-times simultaneously?
The author explicitly asks, where is my other self or my other selves?
And building on that, the text points out that if observation creates reality, then every choice, every observation branches off. There must be countless unobserved, multiple realities out there.
Multiverses, essentially.
Yeah, but I want to completely halt the physics train here for a second, because the author's next point is where my brain genuinely broke, the mysterious link to the past.
Yes. Retrocausality.
Yes. The text poses this scenario. It says, quantum mechanics seems to allow for the deletion of the past. It says we could theoretically prevent our parents from meeting, but we would still be born.
That's a head-scratcher.
Humans still know their past and replicate their future? I have to push back here. How does this make any logical sense whatsoever?
It's definitely tough to swallow.
Right. If you delete the cause, the parents meeting, how can the effect our birth persist? This feels less like a deep dive into physics or spirituality and more like a sci-fi time travel paradox, like the classic grandfather paradox.
It absolutely sounds like a paradox, and on a purely biological level, it is. But we have to look at the underlying quantum implication the author is adapting here.
Okay, I'm listening.
In physics, there are experiments like the delayed choice quantum eraser, which suggest that an observation made now can affect the state of a particle in the past.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The timeline isn't just an arrow shooting forward. It's a landscape where the present can theoretically rewrite the history of a particle.
But rewriting a particle's history, is very different from erasing my parents.
It is. It really is. But this raises an important question. What is the nature of the human self, according to this essay? The author is intentionally decoupling consciousness from biology.
Oh, interesting.
If we can exist in multiple places simultaneously, and if our existence as a consciousness can somehow bypass our own biological origins, then the author is arguing we are far, far more than just physical bodies born on a specific date.
Oh, I see. The text is saying that if consciousness is the game engine rendering reality, then consciousness pre-exists the biological body. We are consciousness operating outside of linear time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are the player, not the avatar. And the author reinforces this non-local, beyond space-time idea by bringing up quantum entanglement, or, as the text described it, twin protons having instant telepathy.
Entanglement is wild. You take two particles, entangle them, and separate them by vast distances, even across the universe. If you change the spin of one, the other changes instantly.
Instantly, seemingly transcending space-time with a speed far beyond the speed of light.
The author asks, what kind of speed is this? Because it breaks the ultimate speed limit of the universe. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance because it literally shouldn't be possible.
It breaks all the rules.
So let's take a breath and recap where the author has taken us. We've gone through all these points that completely disassemble our understanding of physics, causality, and time.
A total deconstruction.
We've gone from cats turning into owls, to baking bicycles instead of cakes, to giving birth to ourselves without our parents. The text has dragged us through these profound confusions.
And now, having dismantled the X-ray machine and broken down all our certainties, the author finally reveals why the text moves to a grand synthesis.
Right. The author states that all this massive confusion from quantum mechanics is actually a good thing. It's a breakthrough.
A necessary step.
Yeah, it promises a bright future where science, philosophy, and religion can finally stop fighting and coexist harmoniously on the same boat. The author even claims, quite boldly, to have the answers to all these confusions.
Yes, the text states, I am confident and proud to say that I have answers to these confusions. But the method the author proposes for finding those answers is what is truly intriguing.
It's definitely a pivot.
The author tells the reader not to get bogged down in the microscopic details or the heavy mathematics. Instead, they advocate for a totally different framework called holographic thinking or chaotic thinking.
So, what does this all mean? The author literally writes, for detailed information on quantum mechanics, please read or refer to relevant books. I won't introduce it further because I use holographic thinking focusing too much on details might affect the overall beauty.
They're very upfront about it.
I have to be honest, isn't that a bit of a cop-out?
A cop-out? How so?
Yeah. Is the author just using the weirdness of quantum mechanics as a free pass to invent their own spiritual rules without actually doing the rigorous math?
I can see why you'd say that.
Sounds a bit like, hey, science is super weird and proves nothing is real, so don't look at the details. Just trust my beautiful, holistic vision.
It's a very fair critique if you view this essay strictly as an academic science paper. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author is actually very self-aware here.
Oh.
They explicitly direct the reader to consult other books for the hard physics because their goal isn't to teach a physics class. The goal is to shatter our restrictive paradigms. Let's actually define holographic thinking to see why it matters.
Please do, because it sounds like sci-fi jargon.
Think of a physical hologram. If you have a normal photograph and you cut it in half, you only have half the image.
Right.
But if you have a holographic plate and you cut it in half, each half still contains the entire image, just from a slightly different perspective. In a hologram, every single piece contains the whole.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's fascinating.
The author is suggesting our minds need to work like this. Instead of using linear logic, A causes B, parents cause the child, the flower causes the cake, we need to shift to holistic intuition.
Seeing the big picture.
Exactly. We need to see the entirety of the universe in every single moment. The text states the goal is to encourage everyone to think broadly, abandon outdated beliefs, and let their minds soar freely.
So, using the established, mathematically proven confusion of quantum mechanics to prove a philosophical point, that our conventional classical logic is fundamentally flawed.
Exactly. If science itself proves that reality is subjective, nonlinear, and observer-dependent, then we have permission to stop trying to force the universe into a neat little box.
We can finally let go.
Yes, we have permission to experience leaps of consciousness, to appreciate the beauty of time and space holistically. The ultimate goal, as stated in the text, is to help humanity understand itself deeply enough to escape that existential despair we talked about at the very beginning.
So, to you, the listener, we have gone on quite a journey today. We started with the heavy, relatable despair of mortality, that fear of death and the unknown that drives us to self-deception and rigid dogma.
It's a heavy place to start.
It is. But then we walked into the weird, wonderful, and deeply confusing world of subatomic particles, a place where concrete reality becomes abstract probability, where the very act of you looking changes the universe, and where the linear timeline of past, present, and future folds in on itself.
It is a lot to process.
It really is. But what this essay is telling us is that feeling confused by all this isn't a sign of ignorance. According to this text, confusion is actually the first absolutely necessary step to freeing your mind and seeing the universe holistically.
That's the beauty of it.
The breakdown of physical certainty isn't something to fear. It's the very thing that sets us free from the illusion of control.
It is a profound reframing of confusion as liberation, and it leaves us with a final lingering thought that connects right back to the beginning.
Bringing it home for us.
This essay began by stating that humanity is in despair because we don't know what happens after death. We believe we are just flesh and bone waiting for the end.
Right, just waiting for the clock to run out.
But think about the mechanics we just unpacked. If quantum mechanics proves that our consciousness actively renders reality like a game engine, if it suggests that we can exist in multiple space-times simultaneously, and if it implies that our conscious existence is somehow untethered from our linear biological origins, is the bizarre, confusing world of quantum physics actually providing us with the scientific blueprint of the afterlife we've been so desperately searching for?